do all alone down here?
This movie very much is about the power of imagination, and not just how scary or terrifying it can be, but also how healing it can be.
If I can finish my list, Chauncey will take me on a trip to the place he's from.
It's like imagination gone wild. Takes a kid's imagination and turns it into a whole other dimension that one can actually go to and experience. In every country in the world, there's this occult tradition of young people's relationships to imaginary friends.
There's a great mystery at the heart of childhood, you know, and so much that we experience that we don't understand. And those experiences really turn into trauma.
Taking a common childhood experience and cranking up the fear factor is all about tapping into something relatable and then twisting it in a way that unsettles viewers. We start with the familiarity of that innocent memory and gradually introduce elements that make it eerie or disturbing.
You were always playing with your imaginary friend.
I had Teddy Ruxpin, and I remember being very upset because I have an older brother who threw him down the stairs one day. And when I tell you, there's this moment in our movie between Alice and Liam, and I was like, that was me. I was very protective over that teddy bear.
Can I hang out with your imaginary friend?
He's not imaginary. He's not your friend. I actually have a whole stuffed animal family, and it's stuffed bears. But now after this movie, I kind of want to get rid of them because bears are now creepy to me. But it's a bear family of my family, my mom, my dad, me, and my 2 older brothers.
I was one of those kids that would just get into bed and have like 20 stuffed animals surrounded around them. So yeah, I mean, I think I definitely relied on my stuffed animals to keep me safe.
I was big into Ghostbusters a lot when I was a kid, so I had the Ecto-1 car, and I had all the Ghostbusters, but I don't think it never really scared me. I was actually wanting to go catch him. You can't have her! You know, I would pretend to be a Ghostbuster and be in a car and just keep going, you know.
I definitely had to close the closet when I was going to sleep at night because there was undoubtedly something in there. And if you just close the doors, he can't come out. My grandfather used to have monster spray, which was just Windex, and he'd spray it into the closet, my papa, and he would close the door. And then I knew I was safe. Even at 34, as the thing that goes bump in the night, I still have my moments too where I'm not sure if there's something else in the room there with me. I would be beside myself if I ever had to encounter a bear beast like that.
Imagination can go anywhere, and that's what's so cool about it. In this movie, you can't say that wouldn't happen, because anything can happen, and that's what's so fun and exciting about it, and what's so scary about it, because anything that you can imagine can then be real in front of you. And we've all had those dreams that are really real, and even dreams that you wake up from and you still believe what happened in the dream. And then obviously in this movie, you end up in a dream that you can't escape from. And everyone knows what that is. So that's a really cool part of the film, and I think that's why it will resonate with people.
Maybe it's time to go, okay?
But I have everything I want here.
Childhood is not an innocent time. It's a really alienating, scary, dark time.
I like the idea of the endless potential of imagination and to pay attention to a child's dreaming. Everything that we experience and think about and believe in will happen in so many ways.
Just as the actors have found different themes, and just as my collaborators have found different ideas to latch onto, I think the audience will find their own when they watch the film. The ideas and the story, and they push it through the filter of their own lives and their own experiences, they make meaning that I couldn't have even anticipated. And ultimately, that's what we want the audience to do too, right? We want them to watch the movie, and we want them to think about their own families and their own childhood and their own imagination, and think about whether or not they had an imaginary friend and how they feel about that. And realize that while that can be a beautiful thing, it also can be a really scary thing. We can also suggest that maybe that imaginary friend you had when you were a kid, maybe it wasn't as imaginary as you thought. And then that becomes a way to explore bigger ideas, bigger emotions, bigger themes.
Jess, come on!
When I first start a show, I have to do a deep dive into the characters, just like the actors have to do a similar sort of process, so I can make the best decisions for them when I'm shopping for color and fabric choices, and use all of that when determining who the characters are.
Hey!
In a show like this, we want the audience to believe in our monsters and our beasts, so if we make the characters as relatable and as grounded as possible, we can suspend reality for the audience and allow them to believe that these things really exist.
Let's just go. It's your happy place.
This one has been particularly interesting because I wanted to honor New Orleans in the character of Jessica, who grew up there. In New Orleans, I've noticed that they use a lot of sustainable fabrics, a lot of vintage shopping, and I used a lot of those inspirations for her character.
Very early on, I sent Yulin my own personal mood board. It was warm colors, very feminine. I wanted to keep Jessica as soft as humanly possible.
The yellow dress was a fun choice. We wanted it to be soft and vulnerable and open, even through all of the madness that occurs in the Never Ever. We have, I'd say, about 20 yellow dresses, all aged in various degrees of distress. This one is sort of a mid one. She's already got the blood from the scissor pocket. She's already has the blue paint and then some dirt and sweat. Here's a clean dress. So they were beautiful at one point, but we're not gonna lie, I enjoyed ripping it to shreds. It was fun. Watching the dress devolve. It was part of the plan from the beginning. She wanted to pick the prettiest damsel in distress look that we could dishevel and destroy by the end. Taylor is just the coolest teenager you've ever seen. She's a little bit punk, a little bit grunge, but not really far in the direction of any particular genre. She's just effortlessly cool. And I thought she's probably influenced by music because of her dad.
Look after your sister, okay?
For Taylor, one of my favorite pieces is this. We created all of the graphics. Again, wanted to be inspired by her love of music. This is from Dad's band, his logo.
The costume was so well done, and the level of detail on the costume it's incredible.
When Mommy was in my room, Chauncey made her look really pretty for me. Said he might do that for me sometime.
Alice is such a sad character in a lot of it, and she's getting to know herself. A big choice we made was to always keep Alice's arms covered as though she's hiding her scars and reveal them only when it made sense for the story.
The costume actually really helps me just get into Alice. I can't do this part. Alice!
Alice's moment in the blue dress was to show her off, her most confident princessy self, and give her her princess moment. I kept adding frills. It was a piece that was in existence that we kept adding to, so I changed, upcycled something that existed. But we created the sleeve. Jeff came in and he was like, "Are you gonna can we add a sleeve?" I was like, "Certainly, like a long sleeve," because I thought we were talking about covering up her scars. He was like, "No, like Galinda." I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. How big would you like it to prove?" And we landed here.
I don't believe we met. I'm
Jessica. I'm Gloria.
I loved my conversations with Betty. She's so invested in her character and bringing them to life fully.
Yulin, our brilliant costume designer, I talked to her on the phone, and in that collaboration, she gave me her ideas about her, and I gave her my ideas about her. And then they described the house to me and sent me photographs, and I was like, the house and the clothes tell you a lot about her. I'm sorry, it's such a mess. I don't entertain.
We thought that she probably spends a lot of time at home watching things, people. Home's quite cluttered and sort of mad in a beautiful way. And we wanted her to be able to fit perfectly into that. We used interesting jewelry that we thought that she probably found at vintage markets or fairs, where she maybe goes to interesting fairs and picks up these unique items. This was such a dream team. I enjoyed working with every single body here. It made it effortless, and we were all on the same page. They all are great. We have a great team, what can I say? I'm thrilled to be here with all of them.
Every culture has a name for it. Entities that tether to the young. We call them imaginary friends.
We're really lucky on this film because we have Spectral Motion creating the creatures. They've just blown me away. They're the best of the best. You know, no one does creatures better than they do.
They're real creatures. It's not just puppets. It's people in these insane costumes and doing crazy things, and it's really scary.
I'm just floored by what they've done with Chauncey, with the spider, with the entity, with the bear beast. I think people are not going to be able to tell what's real and what's not.
Chauncey says you're not allowed to play with us because you left him.
The Chauncey bear is one of the main characters in the film, and it's a fairly complex little teddy bear. In reading the script, there are several beats that kind of dictate what is needed for Chauncey. So there's a floppy version that Pyper Braun is holding for most of the film, and then I read in the script where he's in the bed and he snuggles up next to Pyper.
Sleep well, Chauncey.
Well, that we're gonna need a puppet for. I thought, wouldn't it be neat if we could slightly alter Chauncey's expression or faces based on what's happening in the script? And this is the sad face. His eyes are a little different, his mouth expression's a little different, it's attached by magnets.
The way you make something creepy is implying that there's something else going on. Like something childlike and wonderful is fine when it's in the foreground, but what's going on in the background? What if there's something else, something a little more sinister? And that's where this idea of the entity came from.
3, 2, 1, action!
It is established that the entity is really the puppet master, for lack of a better word. There's got to be a through line and a connection, so we incorporated different design elements in the characters just so that there is a cohesive design through everything.
The entity, it's a sculpted face, and then it was molded and made in foam latex because it's a pullover mask. All of the suits have a little bit of the entity look on them. They all have the sort of the gray lined finish on the bear, it's on his arm and on his back, and on the spider, it's in his face. So obviously it starts with artwork and conversation, and we discuss how we're going to build these costumes. The spider, that was an interesting one because he's on arm extensions that were quite hard to walk on. They're like crutches, but he's holding them and he's on all fours.
We found a really great actor, Michael Beckemeyer. He is basically bending his body and becoming, embodying the spider creature.
With the spider, he's using less trickery and less mind games, and he's less subtle. Being able to just go all out is super fun always.
So the makeup is a cowl piece, upper face piece, a lower jaw piece, and then we've got the costume elements.
The front part of his costume is sculpted, and it has the stumps of his spider legs on it, and he has some traditional costuming on his body with that because he has a coat and he has pants that were made for him. Can't wait to see it all put together.
The bear beast is killing it. He's terrifying. He's going to give many, many people horrible, horrific nightmares.
This is the bear beast character. This is the creature that ultimately Chauncey the teddy bear transforms into at the end of the film. We have several versions of the hands here. We have a running version, and we also have a posable version. So if he's got to grab somebody, it can stay posed and pull and tug.
We've found that having actors and puppeteers work together to bring the film's creatures to life, the more the audience will be immersed in the horror. Dane DiLiegro wore the Chauncey Beast suit to bring the beast to life with the whole team of puppeteers.
Dane actually puts up with a lot. It's real tough to be a suit actor. He's got a really good attitude. He wants to communicate with the director to make sure that he's putting forth the actual performance that he's been asked to give.
I'm wearing this amazing piece of scientific art that all of these people at Spectral Motion and the designers and everyone came together to create, and I am the final hand of the puppet, if you will.
And then we hired a real top-notch sculptor, and he sculpted the full-size bear beast head. I ended up with needing 4 puppeteers controlling 4 radio-controlled transmitters, and those are feeding 22 servo motors inside the head that control the mouth open and closed, and that keeps the whole face alive, basically.
When the bear beast roars, they have to know to open the mouth, so I'm doing little indications. We all are one family, completely in sync.
My concern is everyone's going to be a little scared of teddy bears after this.
Alice opened a door that leads to a place just for her and her imaginary friend.
Never. The never ever is scary.
The never ever exists somewhere between our reality and a reality that you might imagine. It's both a dream and a nightmare, and it's populated by beings that feed off the creative energy of people.
It was so exciting to be on set and really see it. I was just in awe.
Alice's imagination is everywhere.
The never ever just is mind-boggling. It's so beautiful. I mean, just the sketches were just so artistic and incredible. And to actually walk on the set, you're like, what? How did they make this? It's stunning.
It's incredible! A kingdom of our imagination that can be whatever we want it to be!
And action.
Originally, the Never Ever was supposed to be the upstairs hallway. We'd all sit down and you would kind of throw any idea out. Nothing was off limits. Never Ever kept emerging. And then there was the realization of like, how are we going to be able to do all of this?
The Never Ever set was a really fun set to conceive with Jeff. We really had to kind of think outside the box.
You're maybe going to be heading that way, but then you hear the scratching sound.
At one point we talked about, is the never ever just a CG set? I said, no, we want to build a real set.
Great idea.
This is a fantastic place, and it has to have a weight. It has to have a reality to it. And then we'll just augment it with VFX. We'll do little things that make it seem a little bit more fantastical, but we want to ground it in a reality.
It was important to make it physical so that the cast can run through it. They can get pulled through doors.
Get out!
We built our second floor 10 feet above ground so we can suck people through the floor.
We wanted gravity to have a different place here because when they're in the crawl space and in our normal world, their gravity is 90 degrees different.
I've never seen a set that's 10 feet off the ground on a soundstage, and when you're in the Never Ever, the ceiling is clouds. And you have the twisting of the hallway. It's odd, it's very strange, it's dizzying.
The things that ground you in the world and make you feel safe are off in this space. And that's where the twisty hallway comes into play, even just knowing that there's 100 doors down one hallway.
This way.
And you don't know what's behind every one of them. And if the hallways are constantly changing, you never know where you're at. It works very well into my perception of a nightmare.
I've been here too long.
You know, in life, we have all these choices. We have all these doors we can walk through. And I wanted the Never Ever to reflect that.
That's the number of our old apartment in the city.
We really wanted to use a lot of the checkerboards.
The checkered walls of the Never Ever symbolize the distorted and surreal nature of the imaginary world and how the familiar can become menacing.
Some of the paint treatments in there, we wanted it to feel like it's this almost indescribable texture on the walls. It feels like it could almost grow other elements, a constantly changing world where the sky and the clouds have come to live within the architecture. So it's playful from a child's perspective, but it's also a little terrifying from its unrealistic perspective, in that you don't have a good up or down.
It's one thing to watch a horror movie and it's, you know, gory or, you know, gross. And it's another thing to watch something where you're like, I have a fear of losing my mind too.